Hi everyone, it's me, Gracie Davidson. Welcome back to the podcast Intersections Mission to Innovate. This is our interview series where we bring practitioners from different disciplines to share their insights and real-world stories. Quan Collins and Prachi Sutanka are the hosts of this podcast that is created through the Samaya Studio. Quan, you want to kick us off today?
Thanks, Gracie. Hey everyone, it's good to be back. Prachi, hello.
Hi.
As everyone knows, our tagline of our Intersection podcast is Mission to Innovate. So who better to have us join us today than a leading innovator whose years of work spans across both industry and academia. We're pleased to welcome my former classmate, Dr. Robert Bornhofen, in the studio today. Hey, Robert.
Hey there.
Through our Samaya Studio, our vision is to bring multidimensional thinking and acceleration to the innovation ecosystem. And Robert, through his research and his practice, embraces and exemplifies some of these principles. He's had several innovation leadership positions in industry, including his most recent one as the Director of Innovation for DC Water. And he is an adjunct professor of strategy at Cornell and the University of Maryland Global Campus. Robert, it's so great to be reconnected with you, and I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
So let's start with just telling our listeners about your background and what motivated you to get into this field.
Great question. Great icebreaker. You know, I thought about this, and I've kind of zigzagged throughout my career, but always kind of heading in a northerly direction. I started off as a programmer, master's degree in computer science. I was in a cubicle, and I was coding what was given to me, requirements. And I began to think beyond the requirements and began thinking about what if, how can we do things differently? And that was really the start of my career, was getting out of that rigid requirements and looking more at problems and opportunities. And so that path is what I've been taking ever since. I think what really was my tipping point when I was at Citibank and the credit card group. And we were doing the requirements. Someone had challenged the requirements and had this idea. And I thought it was a great idea. And it was risky. It was different. But we went through the motions of what we call today innovation. We were testing some theories and validating it. It worked and ended up being a huge success. It really moved the needle, made a huge impact. And at that point, I was hooked. And that was 20 years ago.
That's awesome, Robert, and what a great story. So how do you see this intersection between your work and this concept of strategy and innovation?
To address that question, I want to reflect on where I am today at DC Water, or the District of Columbia Water and Sewer Authority. We have a guiding 5-year strategic plan. We call it our blueprint version 2.0, and it lays out 5 strategic imperatives. Like sustainability, resilience, reliability, and so on. And it gives us a high-level target. And then below that, we've taken it down to more granular definition around objectives and goals. And we've looked at where we are with where we want to be and where we are today to come up with gaps. So we use strategy and innovation to make sure that what we go after in terms of problems or opportunities, that they align to the business strategy. We don't go off in a different direction. And so one of the key things we do is we evaluate ideas is to make sure that they closely tie into where we want to go, what's important to the business. And so it's a very tight intersection. And it's something that we use to guide what we look for when we start doing crowdsourcing campaigns, looking for ideas. It's ideas to problems that will help us close the gap. And that's what I teach my students at Cornell University, how important it is to be able to align what you do as an innovator, what you pursue, to what's important and what's relevant to the business.
That's great to hear, Robert. And given the name of our podcast is Intersections, we totally love to hear about everybody's intersections. And I have to say that alignment between business strategy and execution and innovation is something that's so crucial and something that's so cross-applicable that completely resonates with me. Pivoting the conversation a little bit, I have to say that the term innovation itself, as we know, it's used in a very different context sometimes. It is very fluid. And another term that's close to our heart, but I think is also very fluid, is culture. And so when we put that together and we say, okay, well, culture of innovation, there are so many different ways in which we could take the conversation. But we would love to hear from you. What do you think are the different facets of a culture of innovation that are conducive to this overall innovation ecosystem?
Well, I first start off with culture, and we have a common understanding of what it is. It's about people, it's about their attitudes, what they think, it's their behaviors, what they do or don't do. It's always that's a starting point, is being able to understand them and be able to have them buy into what you're trying to do. I've had at DC Water and prior to DC Water at IBM, I've inherited a really strong work culture. People care about their jobs. They feel valued by leadership, and they're willing to be able to offer suggestions and go the extra mile. So that's a fundamental building block, is that cultural aspect. As an innovator, and as we are looking for ideas across the enterprise, the organization, one of my key performance measurements is engagement. How many employees, from what groups, what do they do, how often do they engage it? We did some huge crowdsourcing campaigns at IBM globally, about 14,000 employees. We had a participation level of about 65 or so percent. That is, and they either added an idea, commented an idea, or voted on an idea. They touched the system, they got involved. That's a staggering level. Over half of the employees care enough with that strong culture to want to make a difference. So it's kind of like a mindset. I believe in the company leadership. I find purpose and value in what I do, and I want to do something to make it better. And that's what you're really trying to tap into. And I always, in closing, tell others, my students, my employees here, always think about what's in it for me. Why should I care? How do you connect with people to convince them that, yes, you should care, and also to recognize and appreciate people for caring and going the extra distance like this. So it's probably one of the most difficult things that we as leaders do, is being able to strengthen that culture, have the people trust and believe in us, and be able to recognize achievement and personal commitment as well.
Yeah, I love some of those keywords there around the vision, values, mindset, and engagement. What do you think, Kuan?
Yeah, I thought the way culture, as we learned in our program, right, Robert, is the hardest thing to operationalize. And I think the way you characterized it was great. And I liked the sort of the quantitative aspect of it, where you talked about engagement and how that was a demonstration of how the organization was really engaged and cared about, what was going on. I remember in my dissertation research as well, I thought about this as sort of a gift culture, right? That I'm doing this not because I'm getting paid to do it. I'm doing this because I want to gift the organization with, my ideas and how I see things getting better. So that's great. So you mentioned a couple things like those idea competitions and challenges. Can you tell us a little bit more about the specific technologies that you are working with, and how does the technology either acquire or promote a culture of innovation or accelerate innovation within an organization?
So I am currently at DC Water. We're working with, there's a couple of active prototype projects right now, innovation projects. And this is the water sector, so it's a little bit different than maybe other industries. We're using artificial intelligence and machine learning within the context of listening within a water pipe, okay? And it's listening for sounds. Picture a gurgling sound, for example, like a leak. And it's able to capture the audible sound, digitize it, okay? And then use artificial intelligence to look at the signatures of water leaks and see if there's a match. And not only if there's a match, but to what degree. Is it a large sound or a trickle sound? And so we're able to use that technology in tandem, artificial intelligence and machine learning, as we kind of learn as we go along, to be able to pinpoint exactly where leaks are in water pipes and the degree of the water that's seeping out or gushing out. We've never had that capability before. That's pretty cool. You can tell that we all love technology. We know it's rapidly changing and giving us much more capability than ever before. The other one, which is really cool as well, is we're going from water pipes to sewer pipes, right? Sewers. And we hang from a manhole cover this ultrasonic device, okay, that is pointing down into the sewer pipe, and it's using ultrasound. It's listening. It's using sound to be able to compute the flow, how fast the stuff is flowing down the sewer pipe, and also the height by the pressure in the sewer pipe. And that's important because when we have obstructions in the sewer pipe, when it slows down and it starts to go up, it can go all the way up past the sewer, past the manhole cover, and into the streets and people's backyards and basements. So that's not a good thing. So we're able to use this ultrasonic device tied to real-time communication using satellite technology to be able to be alerted at a certain threshold when it's slowing down and we need to send out a crew to fix that sewer pipe. Again, these are capabilities that we didn't have before. We're leveraging technology in different ways, applying it to our business needs. And my experience over all these years, going back to the Citibank days and IBM and other places, is that people really love working with new technology. It's something different. It's something they can learn from and get good visibility. It's fun. And so the crews, and these are mostly blue-collar workers, which are really the guts of our organizations, the ones that do a lot of work. They love it. They really do. I'll touch on a few technologies, but I don't think we have a lot of time. But I just want to give some exposure and visibility to how we used blockchain at IBM with trusted ledgers between different parties, which saved not Bitcoin, but actually ledgers that were tied together from trusted sources. We did some interesting work with chatbot natural language processing to save FTEs by the multiple of being able to automate certain commands, certain requests that would normally take many days to do manually. And again, we did a lot of artificial intelligence and machine learning, but it's been really fun and stimulating to look at how technology can be applied to business processes, old ways of doing business that we think can be done more efficiently, more effectively. And that's really the gist of what we do here with technology.
Yeah, some really great use cases there. And we are probably going to have to catch up offline because I've done some work within sort of the asset intelligence area. And it's fascinating how the assets and machines just really come alive, when you do all of these vibration analysis, physical parameter measurements, and essentially connect the physical world with some of the digital technologies. I would love to, understand there are obviously some very technological challenges when you work within these spaces and use cases that you mentioned. But from your point of view, what were some of the barriers that you saw to innovate within these spaces? Could be technological, but perhaps could be, something to do with other aspects.
Well, I talked before about the need to have a North Star or a set of strategic objectives to get aligned. So not having that in place and doing scattershot, just going different directions is a barrier for some organizations. But with that in mind, it is so important to go after the right problems or the right opportunities to make it relevant. It's so important to be able to, if we were to do something like this, okay, what are some of the SMART goals that are involved?
Mm-hmm.
Very specific goals that can be measured, that can be time-bound or timelined. You're really selling. Innovation is a lot about selling others, convincing others to buy into this concept you have, this high level, these ideas, okay? So by having strategic alignment, having SMART goals, talking about risk and how we can manage the risk. If you look at the lean startup approach, it's really about incremental development, proving out hypotheses and assumptions and getting to a minimum viable product without spending a lot of time or money. These are ways that we mitigate the risk. But communication's key. I talked about employee engagement. I really need to be able to get out in front of everyone. One of the first things I did here at DC Water was I built a website dedicated to innovation. It's hanging off of our intranet site, very visible. We've done screensavers to promote innovation, plasma screens. Everywhere you look, I'm trying to take advantage of where we can communicate what we're doing and why we need the employees, why they're valued. People need to feel like they matter and they belong. They're part of the solution. And that for them to be asked after 20 years what they think about how we can go about solving a problem goes a long ways, especially for those who are intrinsically motivated to do something. They're delighted to be part of the solution here. I mentioned before about letting others know that they're appreciated, to recognize their achievement. If you don't do these things, it gets very, very difficult. So really, it kind of boils down to three things. The need to create value in what you go after, getting the buy-in, and getting the support across the organization. And I think what comes to mind is the quote, and I forgot who said this. It probably was someone in the Silicon Valley. He or she said that we should not be afraid of new ideas, but we should be afraid of not changing and watching bad things happen. So we need to be a little bit of a risk taker, not risk adverse. We need to be able to recognize that the old ways of doing business may be outdated. Okay? We should look into it, and we should do some learning and experimenting. And I think the last point here, because you really hit a good topic here with this question, leadership should be not only supportive, but also patient and recognize that results don't happen overnight. And I've seen projects that did not fulfill the return on investment, but we learned and we discovered so much that I thought was even more valuable than the financial outcome. And we use that knowledge to be able to advance in other areas. So success has many different definitions, and it isn't always dollars or cents or pounds or euros or yens. It's really what the impact of what we learn and how we gain from it.
That was amazing. And you have made DC Water just sound like truly an amazing organization. I want to come and work with you, Robert. Just everything from, the way that you're communicating innovation, how you're engaging your people, this idea of delighting your employees. I mean, we should all be learning from this example and figuring out how we bring that to all of our organizations. That sounds really cool. So with that, I appreciate you being here with us, Robert. It's so great again to be reconnected with you. I hope we keep in touch, and thank you for being here.
It's been my pleasure, and thank you, Kwan and Prachi, very much. Appreciate it. Have a great Mother's Day weekend.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
That wraps up this interview series episode. Thanks, Kwan, Prachi, and Robert for a great discussion. Make sure to check out the Samaya Studio on LinkedIn and stay connected with the I2C at UAH I2C on all socials. Bye, everyone. Onward and upward.